Simon, I was at, as I've said countless times, but I enjoyed it, the EFL Trophy final yesterday between Peterborough United and Wycombe Wanderers. Sitting with one PGMOL chief, Howard Webb. In fact, Howard even passed me an earpiece to let me hear the dialogue between the referee and the VAR, etc. And it was all very interesting listening along to that, Howard Webb, at that match. Thereafter, heading off to find out what had happened at various other matches around the country, and then of course have a meeting this morning with those at the PGMOL to agree, hopefully, that another weekend has come and gone and everything kind of went pretty darn well. No Howard with us today, but that's something we'll address after this. But then we hear stories like Wolves chairman Jeff Shee questioning whether or not VAR is what football actually needs. And of course, this centres around an incident involving Wolves at the weekend. And of course, a goal that didn't stand at the end of the game between Wolves and West Ham. Gary O'Neill claimed that his Wolves players feel they are not respected by referees, describing the decision to disallow Max Kilman's 99th minute equaliser against West Ham as one of the worst he has ever seen. This is actually what Gary O'Neill went on to say.
They don't feel respected by the officials. Spoke to them a lot earlier in the season around remaining focused, and which we obviously will, and trying to only control what we can control. But they will make their own call on how they feel about this situation and what they want to do about it. And very hard for me to stand in front of them with any real sort of integrity and tell them that they're wrong, and that. So we'll see what they see where they are and see how they feel about it next week.
So basically the situation here, Graeme, was Kilman's late header was ruled out with teammate Chiriwa deemed to be blocking West Ham keeper Lucas Fabianski's view while offside. The goal was initially given, but Tim Robinson and the VAR invited the on-field referee Tony Harrington to review his decision. And Wolves not happy at all. A player in an offside position at the moment, the ball is played or touched by a teammate, is only penalised on becoming involved in active play by interfering with an opponent, by preventing an opponent from playing or being able to play the ball, by clearly obstructing the opponent's line of vision, in this case Fabianski, or making an obvious action which clearly impacts on the ability of an opponent to play the ball. But in a general sense, it seems more and more are speaking out about VAR. More and more clubs, individuals at clubs, at various levels, going public about what they think about VAR. And the chief football officer at the Premier League, Tony Scholes, actually said that when he was in here just a few weeks ago.
Oftentimes it's unfortunate when clubs do go public to say that they have made a complaint or they've been in touch, because the truth is that we at the Premier League and PGMOL are in touch with clubs all of the time. So every week, and Howard Webb and his colleagues make it very clear to managers, to head coaches, that they can call at any time. So that's going on always. So why occasionally clubs feel the need to go public to say that they've been in touch, that would be for them to answer. When it goes too far, there is the overall provision about bringing the game into disrepute, but I would rather that these matters were kept in-house and we worked on them together.
I'm sure he would. I mean, Jeff Shee, for his part, at Wolves, Simon, the goal that didn't stand, he says it's time to question whether or not someone remote disallowing a goal is really what football wants or needs. Mm-hmm. We're hearing more and more voices of dissent, and Howard's aware of it. Of course, Howard Webb is aware of it. But does it, when statements like this are made from boardrooms, is it time to sit up and think, well, maybe we need to look at this?
I think that the VAR principle is right. I think the implementation of it is wrong. And the manner in which it's been implemented shows a first-generation product and maybe a second-generation product now. The iPhone that started the iPhone 4 doesn't resemble the iPhone 15. Because it got better and better and better and better, and then became this ergonomically designed super device that no one can live without. And VAR is going through a generational set of changes that needs to improve and needs to improve faster. And the arguments that rage about transparency and communication inside football stadiums, and football fans that are paying to sit in live stadiums should not be disadvantaged in the way that this person sitting at home watching television can see what's going on. And the communication, whatever you do, we have to look back and understand why VAR is here. And it's all well and good that the latest incarnation of Football Manager is shouting at VAR because the previous incarnation was shouting at the referee and saying that the referees have a conspiracy against them and this particular referee doesn't like this particular team and this particular referee isn't fit for purpose. So VAR wasn't brought in to destroy football. It was brought in because of the endless bitching and whining and criticising and constant carping at referees, and alongside the evolution of broadcasters and the 24 hours, 7 days a week, 360-degree scrutiny of every single decision. And then you've got the players that cheat and the culture of simulation that's been brought about and encouraged by the same managers that are crying about what referees do to them. And now you've got owners popping their two penneth in.
What do you think about that? Owners popping their two penneth in. Would you?
Depends on the context. Depends about what you're... I mean, I wrote an article, which I've seen you reference in this, which is calling out for something in 2005 that exists now, which is... My article was, referees should be accountable. I think that too now. Referees should be in the public domain to explain some of the decisions. I think that too now. And technology should have been embraced and brought in. And I think that too now. So nothing that I wrote in 2005 in the Observer column detracts from what I'm saying in this instance. But I think ultimately, owners voting in Premier League meetings to change the rules, first of all, it's not the owner. The owner will go to his manager and ask his manager what his manager thinks, and he'll take his manager's opinion and vote on the basis of that. And if he doesn't, then he's a bloody fool. Because what is the point of having a football manager if you're going to make decisions for him about on-field stuff that is not your gift and not your... not sensible for you to do, otherwise why have a dog and bark?
Yeah. I mean, in that article back in 2005, you were saying how to improve our referees, how to support the best.
Yeah.
Technology.
I did.
So, I mean, now we've got it.
Yeah.
And it seems like managers, players, fans, and now we're talking about owners.
Yeah, but
not happy with it.
Okay, but Gary O'Neill's observation, I don't think that's got anything to do with technology. Where's the disrespect towards his players? What, because you don't like the outcomes? Is that so? That's disrespect now, is it? I mean, I think some of the language that's used is ridiculous, but we are moving the VAR is just a piece of technology that's being used by referees to look at it. It's not some big brother. It's not Winston Smith talking double talk, in the Ministry of Truth in 1984. It's a piece of technology that needs to improve. And it needs artificial intelligence. It needs to have automation at its centre and take away the 5 minute. Look at the delays. Look at a 5 minute delay
Simon,
for Saka's penalty.
The improvement, and it will come along, and it will make it better, but it will still come down to a human being making a call.
Not if you get IR involved.
And we don't know how advanced that can become and how quickly that will happen, but it is coming. But
yeah,
that's
a solution.
Day. But it's, people talk about VAR if it's I see this every time I talk about VAR. People get confused. They think VAR is some supercomputer sitting in a room somewhere that can't make a mistake.
Agreed.
VAR is video assistant refereeing. It's a tool. It's a vehicle
being used
to
by
help
humans.
Referees, human beings, make the correct calls. And unfortunately, some of our referees are not very good at making those calls. And that's the end of the argument. Improve the referees. And I'll advocate, and I've said it all the time, get some ex-pros in to put a different angle on it, how they see it. Because every weekend we could talk about VAR and where they've gone wrong with the calls. And why it takes so long in some occasions where me, like thousands of other ex-players, immediately know when the foul's, who's guilty of the foul, who's been the aggressor in a challenge.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
But we just
they
switched
don't
the
get
emphasis. The conversation has just moved.
It's humans. It's humans you have to improve on.
And the problem is, again, is the characterization of VAR. When people told you that you were going to get technology, nobody told you at any point that it was going to be 100% right in every single decision. That somehow found its way into people's expectations. The issue is more to do, the issue that I have with technology is the bloody time that they seem to be taking to make decisions, which is killing
humans again.
But again, you have to decide that if you're going to be allow a decision to go on for 5 minutes, like the penalty on Saturday for Arsenal. It's ridiculous.
Why does it go on for 5 minutes?
Because human beings are interacting.
Exactly.
But by the same token, you have to switch it around and say, we're an entertainment business now. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
So we can't take 5 minutes inside a football stadium. We have to have 2, and that's the maximum.
The Premier League, we talk about it all the time, it is the best product in football out there in the world today. And surely they want to maintain that and improve on that. And
But actually, for the record,
make Germany, France, Spain, Italy all jealous of us.
But
And
for
to
the
do
record,
that,
you
you have
think
to
that-
keep improving your referees. And right now, they're not getting any better. They're getting worse.
But for the record,
by
you don't
what
think that
standards?
goal, the Wolves goal, should have stood anyway?
No, I don't. I think he's offside. And I think if the guy's not standing in front of the goalkeeper movement would have been out towards the ball and diving.
Agreed.
So there you go. So you don't think Gary O'Neill or
No,
Jeff Shee has
on this
have a
one,
case?
no, but I think he has had cases.
But the
in the past.
characterisation that Graham's just made about referees, we've had this in a similar guise from Mikel Arteta, right? Which was that all referees in England are this, that, and the other, and then we go to Europe, and they're no better over there in some of the decision-making process. So are we looking at refereeing as a declining industry? Because we're seeing Howard Webb talk about that they've got the methodologies deployed to bring refereeing through. That they're now getting paid at a decent level of remuneration. And I understand that you were talking to Darragh about the value of how much referees should be paid. I'm actually in the camp they should be paid more. Because I don't think that 200 grand, I don't care if they're refereeing 180 minutes a week or whatever he was saying. You want the best in class, you pay the best in class, you train them, you hold them to certain standards.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that we are actually now judging referees by an even... No one judges the players make mistakes, managers make mistakes, owners make mistakes. The only people that aren't permitted to make any mistakes
Are the officials?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You've emphasised the point already. It takes them 3 and 4 minutes to come up with a call sometimes. How can you not get it right? How with all the technologies that are available to them,
But you
they
just
still
said,
make it wrong.
You just said, right, you've got a manager here on his soapbox screaming the odds about a lack of respect for his players, about an individual decision, and you as a football person have just said that was the right decision.
Yeah, that's an isolated case.
So he's shouting and screaming the odds, and he's wrong.
No, but
Simon,
Graham,
you
you're
do
also
this-
saying get ex-pros in.
You say
Chris
this all the
Sutton's an
time.
ex-pro
Simon,
who
you
thought
say
it was
this
no
all the
penalty.
time. You can talk about any situation in isolation. You're talking about the Wolves' goal. For me yesterday, the goalkeeper's impeded. His movement would have been one step forward and a dive if the player in front of him wasn't there. That's an isolation. There's been cases this year when Wolves have a case. But that
agreed.
wasn't it? You
But-
can't just
but-
say because of yesterday I'm wrong.
But no,
The
Graham,
technology is there for
statistically-
referees to make fewer mistakes, and it's embarrassing the life out of some of these referees.
statistically, whether we like it or we don't like it, the statistics bear out the argument that more decisions are being gotten right as a result of VAR.
Of course they are.
So, and my argument would be, and so it bloody well should.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But the statistics prove the fact that they're getting. We're only interested in the ones they get wrong. That's what society does. It pulls everything down. It doesn't pull
Yeah.
the bottom up. It
Yeah.
pulls the top down.
Yeah. And you say, Graham, get ex-pros involved. Chris Sutton's an ex-pro who
We're
says
totally
Fabio Silva
biased.
at Ibrox.
It's totally biased. Chris would
No penalty.
if Chris was
you
Chris
say
was
as an
commenting-
ex-pro, it was a penalty.
If Chris, we're talking about biased again. Chris was so obviously biased and is obviously biased, and it's to his credit in many ways that he can, if we put a go out on a limb for Celtic, the way he does when he's commentating.
But he'd probably
on
deny
Sky.
that.
Well, they
There
can
was
deny
no
it.
bias
They can
involved in the
deny it.
decision
They can
making.
deny it all they want.
But that's
in my
your view- but
opinion,
that's
in
your
my
view,
opinion,
yeah.
and I think if you got 100 footballers, 90 of them would say that was a penalty.
Could you trust ex-pros to be in the VAR truck
Why not?
and to put their club
Why
prejudices,
not?
if you like, to one side?
Why not?
Do you show it?
I wouldn't do the job. I wouldn't go anywhere near
Do
the
you
job.
show bias?
I think I've got a bias towards Rangers and Liverpool. Of course I have.
So that would rule you out.
I said I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it.
But Jim, I've been doing this job, punditry, for the best part of 20 years. The fact I'm still doing it now, and I'm 71 in May, would suggest I'm not overly biased.
It's football. So that if you got a League Two player that's played at a standard in League Two, and you're now looking at a Premier League player with Premier
No,
League
you don't have to be in the Premier League.
You don't think so? That argument wouldn't be run.
Football's football.
Okay.
Say they scrap the technology tomorrow, Simon. Would that take the game forwards or backwards?
Neither, because we'd be back into the same argument that the referees weren't competent enough, and the technology argument was brought in by what? It certainly wasn't brought in. The problem is what's happening in football. We've got to look at what's happening in football. Look at what's happening in financial fair play. Look what's happening in technology. What are they doing to the game? What is beginning to happen to the
Monetising
game?
it. That's what
Well, it's
they're
not just they're not monetising, because they'll monetise VAR and turn it into a commercial break soon, and then they'll monetise it. But the point is what's happening to football. We're strangling football. FFP comes in to take away people's right to invest in football. And all of a sudden, the most investable league in the world is going to be laughed at by everybody because we're strangling it. Then we get technology to turn it into a bore fest because people are going to wait 5 minutes for a bloody penalty to be given. Everyone in the ground knows it's a penalty. And you've got to worry what's happening and who's driving it and what the agenda is. But to answer your original question, it would be a neutral situation because you just go bang. The same culprits would come out and say the same things, except they'd be pointing at a human being in the middle of the pitch rather than some mythical Wizard of Oz behind a curtain pulling the bells and whistles that they seem to be some supercomputer.
I'll put it out there. If VAR was scrapped tonight, would it take the game forwards or backwards by tomorrow? 03717 223344.
Hi guys, with the on Saturday, the linesman didn't flag for offside. The referee thought that goal was fine. It was a subjective decision that VAR shouldn't be getting involved in. It's clear and obvious errors. The keeper's 6'3", the lad's 5'10". Are you telling me that he couldn't see that ball? He could. He wasn't impeded, and there was no way he was going to get that ball even if he had go-go gadget arms.
So the goal was initially given. We know that, Lee. But Tim Robinson and the VAR invited the on-field referee, Tony Harrington, to review the decision, and then it was chalked off. And that's what all this fuss is about. But Lee, answer the question. If VAR was scrapped tonight, would it take the game forwards or backwards?
I think get rid of it and go back to the old ways. Because at the end of the day, you can then celebrate a goal, and you know that it's a human error rather than having it checking for 5 minutes at a time.
I mean, your owner, Jeff Shee, says it's time to question whether someone remote disallowing that goal is really what football wants or needs. You'd agree with that?
Yeah, and I also feel that there should be specialist VAR personnel, not referees going in there one day and then refereeing the next day. There should be 100%.
Thanks for the call, mate. Thanks for your time.
That's an interesting observation, Jim, because they're making that point, and I heard it made the other day. Yet when I spoke to Mike Dean, he talked about when you're not refereeing and you're not seeing it live and you're not in touch with the flow of the game, you lose that understanding of what's happening on the pitch. So you become isolated in VAR. So there's pros and cons for each one of them, isn't there?
Okay, I mean, specialist VARs, ex-pros. Chris is an Arsenal fan. Is that what you would advocate? Is it, Chris?
First of all, hi Jim,
hi,
Simon, and Graham. Good to have you all back together. First of all, I just want to point out that, and I'd like to get your opinions on it, there is actually nothing wrong with VAR, the technology. There's actually the poor, incompetent and biased referees that are the issue. And part of me actually thinks that they don't want VAR to succeed because they're all stuck in the 50s mindset. And second of all, with the ex-pros, I love what Graham said about the ex-pros, but however, as you can see, I'm an Arsenal fan. I would never want someone like Gary Neville or Rio Ferdinand, who clearly have so much hate and disdain for Arsenal because of their past rivalry. They would be absolutely biased against Arsenal. So that is something I wouldn't ever want. But just on the ex-pros thing, Graham, I think it would actually be better to actually have ex-pros informing and supporting the training of much of the referees in terms of how they go about, picking up certain mistakes, whether it be diving or cheating or certain offside decisions. And I guess, the PGMOL, this is something that we spoke about not so long ago when I called in. They will definitely not mic up the referees because they know all the total nonsense and bias and incompetency that they do show will show up for the fans and will continue to question more things.
Okay, Chris, thanks for that. I mean, Graham is saying ex-pros maybe could help in the decision-making, but maybe not the ultimate decision.
Well, I think just there to give a player's perspective, I think that's a sensible caller, Chris. I think, not every footballer could do it. Not everyone would be qualified to do it. But I think the referees know the rule book from the first line of it to the last line of it. But that doesn't make you a great referee or a good referee. I think a coming together between two players, to me, 99% of the time it's obvious who the aggressor is, and I would make that call. And I think every single person who's played the game professionally would know that. I just think, have another opinion there. What about looking at it from this angle? I'm thinking it could delay it even longer.
Well, that's the thing. How many opinions you want?
But right now we've spent 15 minutes talking about VAR, and we could do it every week because they keep getting it wrong. And I accept nothing is perfect, but they make basic mistakes that I believe if there's someone who had played the game professionally would be pointing in a different direction on occasion.
The VAR didn't make the decision, and again, I think a key component part is the referee on the field still has to make the final decision. He still has to go, irrespective of the background noise, and maybe he's got his mind changed now. He still has to look at what he originally looked on the pitch and said goal. Then he has to go and look at it on the monitor and say, no, I've changed my mind. So it's got bugger all to do with VAR. It's got to do with on-field decisions that
Human
referees...
beings.
So the point is that the issue about VAR being painted as this awful, sinister thing, if the referee had some cojones about him, he could look at it and go, well, either I was right, I was wrong. And the instance of Wolves, I know you're saying it's an isolated instance, but it's the instance that we're dealing with now.
Every instance is different. What about, so the referee goes to the side of the pitch to look at the screen, and there's the next player in there saying, well, I see it this way. Just give this a thought. And point out to the referee who's come to the side of the pitch to look at the screen. Listen, anything's better than what we've got right now. We're looking to improve the game.
You think?
You got to improve it. You always got to want to improve. And right now, we're standing still with VAR.
I kind of agree with Harry, the Arsenal fan. I love this debate, but this is simple. I can't help but think that football would find something else to moan about if VAR was
that's
scrapped.
what makes it such a great game.
Whatever they haven't got is what they want.
Right.
So they wanted technology. Now they haven't got professional footballers in there adjudicating them. They'll want that. And then they'll want this next. And whatever you haven't got is the reasons why you are not successful.
We've spent 50 minutes today. You could spend 15 minutes next Monday morning and every Monday after that. They've got to come up with a plan to try to improve the game.
They do have a plan.
We've got the
plan.
They do have a plan. First generation technology needs to evolve. You've heard and I don't particularly
Is this
agree
your
with
plan?
No, IFAB have come up with a plan. The people that implement the plans around the technology, Graham. Yeah. They've sat here, and I don't actually agree with what they're saying, but his version is, we're at the beginning of the curve, not at the end of it. This isn't the final product.
Who's it saying this?
Lucas Brood,
the head of IFAB. Right,
so get used to it.
So he's basically saying
go
whatever you got now is not going to be what you end up. And we're going through a 10-year cycle. And I'm thinking to myself, well, hang on a second, that's a bit of a long period of time for people to have to endure first generation technology. It really shouldn't be. Is that repayment on investment for the technological firms that are developing the proprietary software? But the bottom line is that this isn't the end result. No one has said, hang on, by the way, lads, this is it. No one said that.
No.
The only people that are saying that is people peeing and moaning about individual decisions.
Right. So you're talking in 10 years' time what will improve.
The producer will pee
and
moan
between now and the next 10 years.
12:30 bulletin.
That's my point.
And it's 12:30 right now.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.